Jane.
Tell us about these 1,000 cases and your relationship with the NPA. How's that going to work?
So first of all, about the cases, you may know that SARS has both a civil stream of work where it pursues non-compliant taxpayers, and then it has a criminal stream of work where we detect deliberate, fraudulent and illegal acts. And those matters, then when we deal with the tax issue, it is important that we have a very strong, robust working relationship with the prosecuting authority to ensure that those cases are also immediately then trialed. So in this pipeline, as we mentioned earlier this week, there's almost 1,200 cases awaiting prosecution, and that list is growing.
I was going to say, considering what's actually happening out here, that's a small list, isn't it?
Of course, and the list is growing. We clearly don't disclose the names. Taxpayers are afforded confidentiality until it is in the public domain, and typically when it's on a court roll or so, but SARS does not do its work in public. Coming back to these cases, we have been working quite hard with Advocate Batoy and her team, also the director of the Independent Directorate, Investigative Directorate, to ensure that we improve the working relationship. We are, in the next week or two, we will conclude a memorandum of understanding that will allow us to exchange information easier, to ensure we do that within the permissible framework of the law. And also to leverage our
time frame, sorry, are we looking at, if you can expedite the process by streamlining this relationship better?
Well, I think so SARS has a case selection methodology that we use. It's well governed. It has to be so that there's no abuse, and we are fair and transparent in the way we do that. And the NPA would have their own case selection methodology by making our work streams more visible, by ensuring that there is a greater exchange of information. One would hope that there can be some alignment of work streams that serves in the best interest of the country, ultimately. Because tax fraud is a criminal offense, and invariably, when we come across a matter and we pursue it purely for its tax offenses, it's important that we work with the investigative authorities. So in line with that, we also are in discussion with the head of the SIU, Mr. Andy Matibi, in discussion with also formalizing our relationship. So in law, these relationships in any case exist. One of the constitutional principles of cooperative governance means we work with the NPA, with the SIU, FIC and others. But what we're doing is to strengthen that relationship via a memorandum of understanding. Just means we can be so much more efficient in leveraging our effort and ensuring that those who have broken the law is brought to book.
I'm sure it'll open up other areas of interest as well, possibly linked to crimes that you might discover in these investigations. From your point of view, though, what sort of amounts of money are we looking at that you could potentially bring back into the country, bring back to SARS?
Well, I can tell you now, we are currently working on 17 cases. That's apart from the 1,200 cases in the pipeline. We are currently investigating 17 cases, which by our own estimation has a revenue compromise of 30 billion rand. We are looking at, and that's on the more serious offence side. On the more technical, aggressive tax planning and avoidance, we are dealing with about 15 cases where we believe the compromise is between 3 and 5 billion. So if you add up all these, we can see that there are tens of billions of rands that should be in the fiscus that's not collected because of deliberate and criminal activities by syndicates. We see, Fiona, VAT fraud is a huge concern for us. We see right now companies and industries are created purely for the purpose of creating VAT fraud. In the minerals industry, in gold, for example, there's huge areas of abuse.
Let me ask you this. Gavin Watson is dead. And obviously there were many allegations levelled against him. And Bosasa, what sort of impact is his death going to have on SARS and the investigation into his activity?
Well, again, we wouldn't discuss an individual taxpayer.
No, I appreciate that, but
when
it
a
should
taxpayer
make a difference.
When a taxpayer unfortunately passes on, the liability remains with the legal entities that are related to such a taxpayer, and therefore the estate, the trusts, the companies, our work can continue in cases where an individual may pass on.
So it won't set you back?
So it may slow us down. It may mean that specific evidence of an individual, direct evidence, is no longer available. But the telltale signs in any matter is normally beyond one individual. You know, when one is caught up in areas of tax abuse, it's normally syndicated. There are normally people involved in it. So in every matter, it's always unfortunate that there is a loss of life, but the work continues.
And very briefly, I guess what's important in his case, the allegations against him and Bosasa, is plugging that hole so that people don't take their money out of South Africa.
There are various forms of abuse where people take money out of. I share with you one example. And this is not only private companies, it's also some state-owned entities. They would apply for an advance payment for a capital good that is purchased outside of the country. That allows them to take money offshore in respect of a future purchase. When the goods actually are delivered, it has to be declared as a customs import. And we see areas where there's a mismatch between the monies that was paid out and the goods that are received. Now, one of the two statements are then fraudulent, and we see many examples of money laundering and illicit flows where monies that flow out is overstated for the express purpose of getting it offshore for other purposes.
You've got a tough job ahead of you, Edward Kisweta. Thank you for sharing it with us.